Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
Welcome everybody to the FPV News with me and ItsBlunty. How you doing, Blunty?
Good, Josh. How's it going?
I'm doing very well. I'm not doing as well as you, though. I'm not doing as well as the guy who has completed Elden Ring two
true.
times now.
3 times.
Three
Yeah.
times.
Yes.
New game
Gotta
plus
get all the
plus.
achievements.
And has
100%.
42 out of 42 achievements. How many hours of
100%.
playtime?
104 and a half in game.
Every you know how when on Steam when your Steam friend logs in or whatever and it says he's playing, like it just keeps popping up in the bottom of my screen. ItsBlunty is playing Elden Ring. ItsBlunty is playing Elden Ring.
Well, now I'm speedrunning and glitch hunting, so we'll see how long that lasts.
Congratulations, man. I'm like at 10 hours of playtime. So I'm
Nice.
getting there. Welcome you guys. Thank you for coming out to watch us. And we have some crazy news. We have some crazy news this week. Like I know I say every week, "Ooh, we got big news." I didn't understand just how significant this DJI goggle route really was until you told me like 20 minutes before now. And now we're going to tell everybody. And it's big. It's so big.
It is, yeah.
Oh.
We might see a DJI update for the first time in a long time.
Right. This will finally
we'll
motivate DJI to give us a firmware update to stop this route from working. Anyway, if you don't have DJI, then you don't care. We're going to tell you about some other good stuff this week, including, I don't know, Blunty, other than that, what's your favorite item this week?
Well, let's see. I'm also going to yell at Caddx on the rant. We've got a rant. Everybody loves a rant. So I'm going to yell at Caddx for bringing up campus mode again and not doing anything about it. So we'll see.
Oh, wow. Lies. You say lies.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I have to say that's probably pretty strong wording, Blunty, and I don't support it. But I'm gonna let you say your piece.
I did put allegedly in front of it so that it felt
so no one can sue you and me.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, today we kind of just flip a coin at any given time over who's going to be the bad cop and who's going to be the good cop. Yeah. Phantom FPV, good to see you, man. Always good to see your name showing up in chat. Hope you're doing well. Let's just thank the beautiful people for coming out. Thank you guys for here in the chat. I will be watching your chats. If you want to leave a super chat, we will read the super chats at the end of the stream, but we try not to interrupt the news for super chats. Super chats always appreciated, though. Of course, Daniel McCulloch, first time watching live. Thank you so much, Daniel, for your $5 Australian. And JB did an HDZero video most people are okay with. Thank you, Jeckley, for €5. Yeah, I thought the feedback on my HDZero video was pretty neutral. What makes a man turn neutral? Hey, Blunty, we got to put Phantom FPV's most tricks in one battery on next week's news. We'll find a place to put it. It was pretty impressive.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get you next week, Phantom. Thank you also to the folks over here on the right side of the screen in the Discord. Yeah, you're right. Look at this. Boop. Done. The only Discord server that I pay any attention to, other than when I have a question, is my own. Right here, FPV Know It All Discord server. And you can join these beautiful people by joining my Patreon. But let's start, Blunty. We're not going to go right into the meat, because the first thing we do is we do public service announcements. And we have some big public service announcements this week, too. Little things that you
I think this first one is probably going to be a big one for quite a few people. If you are running Betaflight 4.3 and you're running Crossfire on any kind of recent firmware, it may be negotiating over Crossfire V3. And unfortunately, with Betaflight 4.3, on some flight controllers, this has become a problem, and there's a failsafe issue. And we've seen multiple Cinelifters failsafe from this, in addition to other people's general quads. And this has been enough of a concern that TBS has addressed this and put out their own patch for this. So if you're running Crossfire Tracer, you should probably go update to 6.17 to make sure that you are not affected by this bug.
Yeah, by patch you mean they took out the baud rate negotiation.
Correct.
So
yes.
So by baud rate negotiation, Crossfire V3, one of the advantages is that it can go faster and have lower latency than Crossfire V2. And one of the ways that it does that is that it negotiates the baud rate between the receiver and the flight controller. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
basically, the flight controller can talk back to it and say, "Yeah, we're good with this baud rate. Go ahead and send it." And it confirms that it's all good to go over that CRSF protocol.
As opposed to just what it previously did, which is basically do the lowest common denominator and be like, "Yeah, it's fast enough." And so what's happening here seems to be that Crossfire is trying to get to a faster baud rate, failing back down, then trying again. Instead of just being like, okay, we can't do this, it just keeps trying to go to the faster baud rate until the flight controller is like, all right, F you, fail safe. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, it's kind of, I think the issue is, it just continues to switch negotiation. It may go up and down trying to look for it, or it may reset negotiation over and over again. But some part of that, along with some of the way the flight controllers are set up, and I get it's likely a scheduler thing. I'm not exactly sure that they've identified exactly why it's happening, or it kind of would have been patched, I imagine. But essentially, some issue in there is causing it so that there's enough miss so that a fail-safe packet is sent. And I don't think one's actually sent. I think it's just like Betaflight says, "Hey, we've seen enough missing information for long enough that we're going to consider this a fail-safe." Just to be clear, a couple of people in chat are saying they're going to roll back to a different RC. Even though RC3 is the newest one, it does seem like people are reporting this is possible in RC2 and RC1 due to looking at the code and the way everything's set up. So I would not necessarily assume that I was safe on RC1 and RC2. UAV Tech says RC4 will probably have this resolved.
Now, Blunty, when we talked about this before the show, I asked you, who should I be pissed off at right now? Should I be pissed off? Is this TBS's fault or is this the Betaflight dev's fault? Just let me know where to fling those knives.
Yeah. I personally think this is a TBS issue. And that's because I don't think that if you're having trouble negotiating the baud rate, that you should continue to try to negotiate the baud rate. I feel like there should be an initial boot where there's a baud rate negotiation for, let's say, 30 seconds or whatever's going to happen, right? And then you're good. Like I don't see any reason for it to continue to attempt to negotiate that baud rate over and over again. It's the same thing we reported on last week, where you can't use 3-wire CRSF on the newer Crossfire receiver firmware. So you have to use 4-wire. It's the same reason, because they continue to try to negotiate even though they never see that information for the negotiation. So to me, it should just fall back to the lowest baud rate if it doesn't get that negotiation happening properly in a certain amount of time, or there's a certain amount of fails or something with that negotiation, right?
So your point is that it's TBS's fault because TBS should have designed the protocol to be more robust. However, we have to acknowledge that only Betaflight 4.3 has the problem. Betaflight 4.2 is fine. So I think Betaflight has to, of course, Betaflight is in release candidate. It's not officially released anyway. So what the hell are you doing running your $40,000 Cine lifter on a freaking release candidate, you bozos? Okay, fine. That's up to you. But Betaflight, it's not like if Betaflight was working optimally, then this issue wouldn't have come up. So maybe like 10% Betaflight's fault. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like in any case like this, it should be on the RX to do that fallback and make sure that you're not having this fluctuating, baud rate. The ability to drop packets and things shouldn't be possible. It should just be like, hey, we're running slow, fix your shit so we can run faster.
Yeah, Mouse FPV says it can be both. The new Betaflight 4.3 scheduler has issues. Yeah, we know that it does. So who cares how much to where it's just cute, trolling for the news, trolling for the YouTube audience to say, who is at fault here? The bottom line is that if you're running Betaflight 4.3, you must install Crossfire 617 to disable Crossfire V3. And that will give you a little bit more latency, but who cares? Or you can go back to Betaflight 4.2 and everything is fine on Crossfire V3. That's up to you. And Betaflight RC4 is supposed to fix this, but of course it's a release candidate, so who knows?
So I guess it should also be pointed out that TBS did code the Betaflight side of this because they did the CRSF V3 implementation. So technically...
So it is TBS's fault!
It is TBS's fault, yeah.
I shouldn't sound... I'm hamming it up for the camera, but people take it seriously because people don't realize that it's everything is a little bit of a performance. And then they're like, wow, Bardwell really hates TBS. He was so happy. It's like, I'm just hamming it up for the camera. Take it easy. Take it easy. Let's move on.
Yes.
Do you have a thumb?
I do have a
thumb?
I don't have a Runcam thumb.
I don't. I actually do. I was going to say I don't. I actually have one. I just haven't gotten it out yet. There is a problem with the Runcam Thumb and gyro flow. It just basically doesn't work with gyro flow stabilization. Except someone figured out what was wrong with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it looks like a couple of people kind of came to the same conclusion, but we did find an issue report that was public about it that somebody sent into us. And basically, it looks like the Runcam Thumb has the Accel and the gyro data flipped around. So it's reporting the Accel in the gyro column and the gyro in the Accel column. And so you're getting the wrong information into gyro flow.
And this person fixed it through the extremely sophisticated technique of opening it in Accel and swapping two columns with each other. And then it worked.
Yeah, so
how did they figure out that that's what was going on?
I'm not sure. I think they were probably just tired of dealing with the issue and were looking at the numbers and saw that numbers were really weird or something. I'm not exactly sure, but either way, obviously they were able to dig this out. And then Elvin commented, who's running the gyro flow, and he says that they did discuss this with Runcam, so we're waiting on the update. And I checked, and it was not out before we started the show yet. But keep an eye out if you're using the Runcam Thumb for that update. And in the meantime, you were going to want to copy those columns to each other to make it work in GyroFlow.
Okay, great. That's great, because that camera, a lot of people are really excited about that camera, and the ability to use it with GyroFlow was one of the selling points, except people were like, well, it doesn't work. Yeah. It's kind of a dumb mistake, but a simple mistake to fix, so that's good. We got one more PSA, and this actually ties into the story about the root, which is going to be our next story. But MadsTech released this video.
Today is just a...
Do not update your DJI goggles.
Yes. This is specifically going to be V2 goggles and your DJI FPV drone. So you're not going to want to update either one of these. And so the main reason, and he goes over this here basically in this video, but you know the essential idea here is that they've actually created a new firmware for this express purpose of making it so that you cannot change your firmware in the future.
Lies. Look at this lie. Optimized flight safety.
That's the FreeSky line.
What's that? Yeah, they do the same thing, don't they?
Yeah. But basically, so this new firmware, it's 0015, but it seems 0020 also had similar functionality but didn't prevent the rollback. 0015 is the new patch for the V2 goggles and for the drone. And this prevents any of the no-limit drones or DroneHacks on your DJI FPV drone. So the power hack and the FCC hack that you typically would use on your DJI FPV drone has to be
clear,
done through the website.
This is the DJI FPV drone, not the air unit in the Vista. When you say the FCC hack doesn't work, you're talking about people who, if you don't fly the DJI FPV drone, and why would you? This doesn't affect you.
Well,
but
it might affect you because the V2 goggles also get this update. And so if you update the V2 goggles with this, they'll also have the 0015, and this is going to push that back so that you can't see a rollback version anymore, and you're stuck on this 0015 version. But what that means is it updates both sides of the goggles, and it blocks out the next thing we're going to discuss, which is the DJI root hack as well.
Okay, and this is huge. So now,
yes, and this so really this is big. We've talked about before. I think this is kind of going to be similar or probably bigger, depending on what people do with it, than the FPV out that we talked about before. And so this is presented.
What does it mean when we say that the DJI goggles, the DJI Air Unit, and the DJI Vista have been rooted? Let's start there.
Yeah, so basically root access means that you can get down to the lowest level of workings on the hardware of the DJI equipment. And so this affects the DJI V1 and V2 goggles, the Air Unit, and the Vista. And so this hack basically gives root access to these so that you can do essentially anything you want within reason to the goggles. It gives you root access to the lowest level access you need to get in there and do what you want, including things like sniffing into the firmware, looking at what's already in there, loading a copy of Doom, which people have. There's a Doom that we have actually linked that's already put together as a project. You can load onto these.
Doom in your goggles, cute.
Yeah, we've also got there's some base core for working off some other stuff called the Frida core. It basically implements JavaScript and stuff like that. So people are already working on this kind of thing, and this is basically a public project. So this is presented. I just want to
So I want to.
So this is real quick. I just want.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is by Joonas. I just want to shout him out. The same guy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Who did the FPV out? The what you call it, the magic bite, the magic bit, so that he could get the code on FPV out. He also pioneered this work along with some of the other guys on this project. I just want to give him a shout out. So that's going to be tmbinc binary with a 4, so BIN4RY, Jaanuke, who's a know-it-all in your Discord.
Oh, nice.
Funnel, and fichek, and they all helped out with this. They're the FPV WTF group, and they were able to get this all out for you. So.
The point that I want to make is got me so excited about this. When we got the FPV out hack, right, that let us get USB video out, that was a big deal. But basically, someone just looked at the data that the goggle was sending to the smart controller and decoded it and figured out how to make an app that pretended to be the smart controller. That's basically all they're doing. So that was
They were like, hey, this goggle's yelling at this device, and then the device is yelling back. So let's see if we can pretend like we're that device. That was the idea there. So yeah, kind of a simpler idea, like a more base level idea. Yeah.
This hack is far more sophisticated because it's giving them full access to the operating system. And one of the things, I was like, well, okay, so you would assume that all the data would just be like encoded and encrypted. But in fact, once they get the root access, they're kind of just playing around in an Android phone on some, it's an Android operating system, isn't it?
I believe they use Android NDK. Yeah, DJI does. So now that they have access to that, they can get access to that file system. They're already, going in there and manually editing some of the messages and stuff, and you can get into some of the basic files and stuff. Also, I know that they're going to release some more information on this page here on Margarine, which is the name of this project. They're gonna put out information about like how you can do some more of this information. Basically, how you can also dual boot and tri boot these goggles, so you can get into your normal firmwares along with these extra hack firmwares. And it does basically seem like this will be the outlet for people to do anything you want. Like this is kind of an open developer platform for this piece, basically.
What's cool about this to me, like UAV Tech says, canvas mode, finally. And I thought that, but then I thought, like, if you were to give me access to the firmware of, my camera or my car, like, I wouldn't know where to begin with it. Like, it may be completely proprietary, And what I'm hearing is that many of the things that they have access to now are not completely proprietary in a way that would prevent them. Like, maybe you could actually implement canvas mode. Yeah. That's not implausible.
100%. Yeah, I don't think that's implausible at all. It just depends on basically what developers can get a hold of this, how much they can glean out of the current, like, piece apart firmware. Like I talked to Joonas a little bit about it, and he seemed like there was pretty good access, and it just needs somebody to dig through it and try to figure out exactly how the implementation
reverse engineer shit.
It's possible you could remove the hard limit. That's on, that's the timing limit on the DJI goggles. That may affect the other parts of the system. Maybe we can find out what that is and why. That would also be interesting to see.
On some level, there may be things that are difficult to change. There may be like very deep driver level stuff that's encoded or maybe even encrypted that they don't have access to. But there's a whole lot of potential here to modify this system in a way that is extremely exciting. But if you update your firmware, you don't get to play the game anymore. So don't update your firmware.
Yeah, and currently the latest Air Unit and Vista firmware do work correctly, and the V1 goggles work correctly. The V2 goggles, if you're going to do those are not going to work correctly. Also, we didn't mention that, just so you know, if you have the V2, if you have the drone, and you go onto your app, your DJI Fly app, and then you connect to your drone, it's going to ask you to force the update. So even if you normally don't, want to do the update, so make sure that you're not connecting your phone to DJI and then to that DJI Fly app and then plugging that into the drone. If you do, there are reports that on iPhone, you can disconnect from the internet, force quit, and relaunch the app, and it will not force the update, but that does not work on Android. So
gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, try not to do that.
All right. Well, currently, all you can do is download Doom and play it on your goggles. Of course you can, but there's a lot of potential here for interesting stuff. We'll see. And the real joke, Blunty, is that now DJI is going to deliver one killer feature that makes everybody upgrade. That's like, I would put money that now that there's a root, DJI will give us canvas mode or something that we want.
Or they're just going to push an update that prevents rollback, that tricks people into roll, and then eventually slowly everybody gets it.
Well, that too, but I'm not plugging my goggles in ever again.
I 100% agree with you.
But what if they just start shipping Air Units with a new firmware, and now you keep getting, you must update your firmware message every time you try to fly?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Yeah.
Like if I was DJI, that's the first thing I would do is I would start shipping with the upgraded firmware.
Sure, but I will say I think the handshake, maybe somebody could correct me that actually knows, but I believe the handshake, intuitively, it would be the other way. So the goggles check and make sure the firmware is correct to allow the video from the Air Unit, probably. I don't know that there's a shake the other way. So
I mean, if they don't match, you get a warning.
Well, right, but you could fake the match on the goggles if you have access to the firmware.
You're right. Damn.
Yeah.
All right. This is exciting. We'll see what happens at some point in the future. Alrighty, moving on to the next story. HDZero and DJI, man, MadsTech is all over the news today.
Yes, he is.
What did he do
Doing
this
some
time,
good
Blunty?
All right, so HDZero and DJI have been tested by MadsTech on his bench, so he could see on his nice analyzer, so he could give you the real information. So we've talked for a while about you know, the possibilities of the system where, you know, hey, when you power up, it blasts on this channel, or it's going to be X power, or it's you know, it's too wide and it's stomping all over the people you fly with, and X, Y, Z, right? We've heard all those things, and then a lot of us have flown and seen some of those are true and some of those are not. So MadsTech decided to put it on the bench and like, let's actually see what's happening with these channels or with the power up and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to review some of the takeaways here that we've got from the system. And by the way, this is a great video. If you're actually interested in the RF and seeing what's happening, you should definitely watch this video and check out MadsTech channel for.
There's a lot of stuff here. It's like it's good stuff. Where should I start, Blunty? Give me a timestamp.
Well, so near the beginning, you can just kind of go through there. I basically we can kind of look at what he's doing, but I just want to review basically some of the takeaways. Then we can look at maybe a couple specific things.
Okay.
So the first takeaway to remember here is that they actually have the same size bandwidth. So a lot of people say on 25 megabit. So a lot of people say DJI is stomping all over the other channels, right? So when you compare HDZero to DJI, and you actually
look at HDZero on the right, this is DJI on the left.
DJI on the left, and so those four little peaks above there are the goggles talking back, so for some context there. And those always stay the same power, regardless of the power that you have the unit on.
Interesting.
They just scale probably based on LQ or something. Not been totally determined yet, but essentially. If you scroll a little farther forward, you should see 1 watt mode on each, and you'll kind of see both parts kind of swell. So there's HDZero on 1 watt, and you can see both, like, you know, basically the whole side of the band increases, but not by a lot, and not enough to really knock much out.
Again,
right?
HDZero on the right, DJI on the left. Why does DJI 1 watt not look like it's gone up at all?
It's not 1 watt yet. So he's powered
on
okay.
I see.
And now we're going to power on DJI.
Now we got DJI at 1 watt. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. But one of the interesting things you'll see here is that you see how there's kind of the edges above, right? So you see how above there's like an imprint of the DJI.
Yeah.
Like and on the sides there's an imprint of the DJI on the edges too, right? Where it's clearly gone up higher. Yeah. And then there's also a spike on the left.
So this red outline is the max line?
Yes, the red outline is the most that's seen basically in those spots. And so part of it is also he's got local Wi-Fi issues and stuff, but he does clear it from time to time. But one thing to notice is that consistently DJI powers up stronger power than you have it set, and also than that it's possible to power up at. So if you have DJI on 1200 milliwatt, it appears to power up much stronger than that.
Is that what this is over here?
Power. So this is another part of the DJI system. The other quirk of the DJI system that we've discovered here.
Oh, I see. Sorry, Blunty. Hold on, Blunty. Let me catch up. This little bump here is when it first powered up. It powered up at this excess power and then came down to 1 watt. That's what we're seeing here with this little bump here. Now we're moving on to this little bit, which is like this is on whatever channel it's on, but then this is all the way down on race 1. What the hell is this? Why is this here?
Race 5 actually, so it's 5805, and it's like this like spike that's right at 5805, and it's always there, no matter what channel you're on, even DJI 5. That spike lives at 5805, and it's a timing spike that the goggles seem to send periodically over the air. And no matter what, no matter how many DJI goggles you have up, etc., it seems like from testing, and Mads is going to keep testing this in more situations, it seems like no matter what's there, it's just going to slap that spot with that timing pulse over and over again.
How often does that happen?
Over and over again, constantly, like every millisecond.
Once a second? Oh, yeah. like all the time.
Like constantly, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
If you play it, you should be able to see those little spikes. While it's going on. But basically, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, interesting.
So it's just so it's repeatedly spiking there, and so that might be another concern for people who are flying with DJI pilots. Typically, we say, you know, R6 is the one to stay off of because that's DJI 8, and that's what we're showing here with the power on. You get a very strong power on that channel. However, there's also a spike on R5 right in the center, and that might also be affecting people and having some similar issues.
Absolutely.
Some other things to take away from this are the power does change based on hacks. So we said it spikes over its given power, but if you actually change the goggles back down so that they don't have the 1200 milliwatt hack, it will power lower as max power. And if you have CE on, it will power even lower, which is kind of fascinating. So they know that it powers up above, kind of slaps the air with that signal and comes down, and it's some function of how it's designed.
Interesting.
The last quirk I want to bring up, there's one more thing that he did figure out.
Yeah.
Is that on channel 8 on DJI, so that 25 megabit, public channel we talk about a lot. It turns out that you can make that channel a fourth 50 megabit channel.
Channel 8?
If you wanted to. Yes.
Oh,
and so,
how do you do that?
And so there's a weird quirk. If you go into the goggle, if you set to channel 8, if you set to 50 megabit per second mode, and then you set any power that's not 1200 milliwatt, and then you reboot the goggle, it will boot that channel 8 and 50. Then you can go up to 1200 milliwatt, reboot as many times as you want, and it'll be a 50 megabit channel. Very weird.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. So little quirks and stuff from the system. MadsTech has definitely been in here digging in and discovering, trying to see what bleed over happens and all that kind of stuff.
Brandon Bean says, so race 5 is also not good to use now, and race 6?
Yeah.
I mean, race 5, you're getting some interference. It's not as bad as... Oh, why is it worse?
Race 5 is always, where race 6 is only going to be on power up. So like if I'm running DJI goggles, race 6 is only slapped on power up, right? So they're going to hit that channel really hard because DJI jumps to public, and then it's going to hop to whatever channel it normally goes on. Unfortunately, with that hit on R5, it's just always there, no matter what channel you're on, no matter where you set. So even though it's not as big, I think it's just constantly there. And I think maybe that's kind of something to consider, is that even though it's like while you're flying, it's always going to be affecting a little bit versus that big slap while you're first turned on. The other thing I considered here, and I would like Mads to test this a little more, is I've seen weird stuff when you're flying with other people with timing. Like I've seen, issues where it seems like kind of one of the goggles is affecting the other goggle if we're all on 50 megabit, right? 3 of us are on 50 megabit.
I believe that.
So I wonder if that's because all the timing is on the same channel, right? Because all the timing is on R5.
I mean, I think that depends a lot on how close you are to each other. But I see what you're getting at. Even if you're on different channels, if everybody is deriving timing from race 5, from 5850 or whatever, then if everybody is cramming each other on 5850, then they're going to get in each other's way.
Yeah, 5805. Yeah, so it's just that's another theory to consider there. But I know Mads is going to try like slapping that spot with a bunch of RF and see if DJI will move it, or see if like multiple goggles negotiate out of it, stuff like that. So
neat.
We thank him for his work, and there's a lot of good information.
Absolutely, MadsTech really incredibly knowledgeable and helpful guy. He posted this video. In a Facebook group, and I don't know. He must have posted something asking a question about the DJI batteries like 2 weeks ago. So MadsTech posted this video. Do not update firmware. This is a previous video, not this one. And somebody commented and was like, "Listen, buddy, I just saw you post a question about your batteries. Now you've had the DJI FPV drone for 2 weeks. Maybe you ought to, get to know your drone a little better before you start telling us all what to do." And I was like, do you know who you're talking to? This guy, you should listen to this guy, okay?
Yeah.
Anyway. Alrighty. From DJI to GoPro.
Yeah.
And here's how we're going to set this story up, Blunty. Hang on, first I got to do my fancy. There we go. Oh, everybody has been wondering if GoPro is about to release a new session type camera. There were some statements that led people to think they were developing a new form factor. Now we have some patent information which reveals what might be talking about. Is it good news? Are we getting the session back? That's what everybody wants to know, Blunty.
Not yet. No, not yet. From what
Damn
we've
it,
seen, not
Blunty.
yet. So instead, we get what looks to be essentially an Osmo Pocket clone.
No one wanted that.
Probably not many people wanted that, but I guess we'll find out.
No one wanted that.
However, one interesting thing, a little bit of a weird thing, is they did put in the patent. I dug through the patent a little bit, and they did mention in there that you could attach it to a drone, but GoPro doesn't make a drone. So,
I mean, if you gave me this cylinder without this stupid thing, and that was the whole camera. Maybe that would be a session replacement. It's possible.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's that entire figure 8A there. The whole snap-in bit would be the part that snaps into the drone as well.
No. What's that going to weigh? Forget it. All right. I mean, that's cool. Someone might be excited about this, but I'm not.
Yeah. So that's one of the two things that GoPro will be adding to their lineup. We have the Hero. We have what's that other one? I always forget the name of it. Max, the Hero, the Max, and now this, whatever this thing will be called. Yeah, so hopefully the fourth one is a session. We can hope.
I mean, it's still possible, is what you're saying. There's still a chance.
Is a session. Yeah, we can still dream.
For people, I mean, I was hanging out with Phantom and Stingy. I don't know if Phantom's still in the chat. I was hanging out with them some weeks ago, and they both fly the DJI Action 2. And I was like, yeah, but the image quality. And they were like, yeah, but it saves you 100 grams. And I was like, well, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah. Also, something maybe people have not considered is remember that Best Buy policy for camera exchanges is based on the name GoPro. They do not have that policy for DJI Action 2s yet, and you can do Action 2 swaps in the store. And they will specifically tell you they can't swap GoPros, but they can swap Action 2s, at least at some locations.
Oh, the policy that they have to send GoPros back to GoPro, and they can't swap them in the store.
Yes, but that is not the case with Action 2s. Yeah.
So the Action 2 is easier to break and rip. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. That's good news right there. If you did go down there and hit the like button, that earned your like right there.
Yeah, it's not Sam in the Discord says he swapped 3 in the last 2 months.
Yeah, instant replacement. I mean, it's $500, but just $500. You amortize that over all of them. Your average cost comes way down because it's $500 for the first one, and then like $60 or $40 for every subsequent one. And so after a while, you've only paid $200 for each one. I mean, you still pay $200 for each one. It's a lot of money. All righty. Next up, we've got a community spotlight entry. And this one is fixing a problem with the Runcam Orange. Runcam Orange, popular camera for people who can't afford a GoPro. I mean, I'm just going to say.
Popular camera with a horrible microphone, or at least his has a horrible microphone. It's like painful to listen to. You might give a little sample of it at a low volume, just so.
Oh God.
Ooh, so rough.
Yeah, that's really bad. It's really bad.
Anyway,
that's not bad. The image is not bad, I have to say. Sorry, Blunty, to interrupt you. The image is not bad. I was picking on it. I was, just a little bit, but that's not a bad looking image, honestly.
Yeah, for what, I think $99 or something like that. Not too bad. However, he was like, let's see if we can try to figure it out. So he went in and kind of popped open the camera. And we don't need to hear the other version of it. But if you go,
now we fix it. How do we fix it?
Yeah, if you go through, basically what he did was remove that front cover with the microphone under it, and then put a piece of VHB and some foam in there, right on top of where the camera or that microphone lives.
Oh, interesting.
And surprisingly, even with covering up as much as he does, it's like perfect. It ends up like perfect. I imagine he tested this a bit. It's not like perfect, but it's way better than.
Are we going to hear it? Should I turn the volume all the way up?
That's fine, yeah.
Dare I? Oh, that's fine. That's fine. That sounds great.
Yeah, huge improvement.
Wow.
So if you have a Runcam 5 Orange and you hate your audio, don't hesitate to do this change.
GoPro's got all these patents on their audio processing. It turns out just a little piece of VHB and some foam, and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Stephanie Kilbasa in the chat says, I'm very suspicious of your name, Stephanie O'Kilbasa. Stephanie says it done the mod, and it works amazingly well. So, yeah, massive improvement. That's not bad. Honestly, $100. I'm going to have to go back and rethink the Runcam Orange, because this image quality isn't really that bad.
Yeah, especially now it's got integrated gyro support and stuff too. So
yeah, I may have to go back and rethink this camera. Clown FPV says the Runcam 5 Orange with that fix makes it better than the Action 2 for sure. Interesting. $500 for a DJI Action 2. Or no.
I don't think
yeah. Versus $100 for a Runcam Orange.
Certainly there's a large price gap, but I think there's also a large image quality gap there.
And stabilization. Although the DJI does stabilization in camera, the Runcam can do gyro flow. I think it's well worth $100. That's for sure.
Sure.
So, alrighty. Interesting. Next up, Blunty. By the way, thank you very much to Andy Dredd for that, in case we didn't get his name called out. We didn't know what kind of subject line to give this report, and I'm going to reveal later in the story why we titled it "The FAA Will Ignore This ARC Report." But before we do that, I want to go over this press release, or this blog post, whatever you want to call it these days, from the FPV Freedom Coalition. And it is a overview of the BVLOS, that's Beyond Visual Line of Sight, ARC. What does ARC stand for, Blunty?
The
Advisory Committee.
Aviation Rulemaking Committee.
Okay, so the ARC, the ARC is a group of industry people that makes recommendations to the FAA about their policies that the FAA should make. And so Dave Messina from the FPV Freedom Coalition, he's not on the DAC who actually makes the rules, right? Is it the DAC that makes the rules?
I believe that's correct, but at this point, I think they've changed the name already, so I'm not sure what they are now.
Federal government, what are you going to do?
Because they're not drones anymore. They're like, they changed so that they include manned vehicles and stuff. So
okay, so the ARC doesn't actually make rules, but a lot of people can be on the ARC, and they advise that people who actually make the rules. So what kind of things is the ARC telling the FAA that the FAA should do? And that's why I wanted to cover this story. Here's what is the ARC and timeline towards the BVLOS rule. Because there's recommendations here. Things like how we can do beyond visual line of sight legally.
Right. Yeah, they're trying to set forth basically a framework that hopefully the FAA can adapt for things like shielded operations, which we've discussed a little bit. You know, why does it need to be so that if you're under your treetops, you can't just fly? Well, you know, there's no planes down there, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, this is reviewing a lot of that kind of stuff and talking to, basically discussing how a lot of this BVLOS stuff will happen and how a lot of these shielded operations will happen. Also, they talk a little bit about crewed aircraft, because again, they're not covering crewed aircraft as well as unmanned UAVs. So they're talking about how those will need ADS-B enabled.
Right.
And so
if it changes the rules of the road below 400 feet outside of controlled in Class G airspace, so that the aircraft either have to have an ADS-B transponder or they have to yield the right of way to an SUAS, to a drone, which is fascinating to me because it's the first time I've ever seen anyone suggest that a manned aircraft should yield the right of way to a drone.
Sure. Yeah, and it's strictly, like they say, it's strictly due to them not having any ADS-B. That's the suggestion. And if they did, then it wouldn't be an issue because then the U.S. could use the ADS-B to avoid them. So.
Right. You could have an ADS-B receiver, which says basically there's an airplane incoming, get down. But you would no longer have to have a visual, like even if you have a visual observer, planes and helicopters often come by so fast that by the time you hear them, they're practically on you. Whereas with ADS-B, theoretically, you would have more warning that they were coming. It's great because this actually increases safety while still saying, look, guys, if you're below 400 feet, F you. That's areas for the drones to some degree. And then protected operations or shielded operations would say that if you're within 100 feet vertically or horizontally of an obstacle, which could be a building, could be a tree, could be a radio tower, then you don't need to, what do they say? You don't need to register? No, you don't need.
Well, that's the shielded operation. So I think it's just like you don't need to like have a reported flight or you don't need to yield to anyone or like those kind of things. So you wouldn't need remote ID in that situation.
Yeah. That's a big deal. That's very encouraging because that opens up, it says if you're flying at a park and you're near the trees or if you're near a building, then you don't need to frickin' worry about airplanes. It's not an issue. That's a big deal. Now, that's cool. But the reason this title is the FAA will ignore this ARC report is because they already ignored the ARC report back when remote ID was first done, right, Blunty?
Yeah, there was originally, we covered a little bit on the news. We went back and looked at it when the first remote ID rule came out. Basically, there was an ARC report similar to this that reviewed how remote ID should work and what those limits should be, and basically how all the pieces should work. And essentially, the FAA took that information and then threw out what seems like 90 to 95% of it when they made the final remote ID rule.
Yeah.
So I think it can be kind of disconcerting to look at this information and then assume that the FAA is going to adopt it. However, all we can do is hope that they will.
Well, this is like, it's like, before Christmas, your dad says, so you really want a bike for Christmas? A red bike? A red bike with streamers on the handlebars and 10 speeds and fenders? You really want one of those? Well, you're not getting it! And that's what happens. The ARC says, here's all the stuff that's completely reasonable and everybody wants. And the FAA goes, thank you. And then they just, in the past, they threw it out and just didn't do it. So I wanted to cover this because I want you guys to know what people like Dave Messina at the FPV Freedom Coalition and the rest of the ARC are telling the FAA that they think the FAA should do. And if the FAA then does those things, more power, congratulations, that's awesome. But if this stuff comes out and it's all been thrown in the garbage, I just want you to know that you could have gotten a nice red bike for Christmas if your dad wasn't such a dick. That's basically what it comes down to.
Also, something to point out, this is a great place to, this is a great framework to share with anyone who would be interested in knowing a proper way to do this. So people who are maybe in favor of remote ID, people who don't know better one way or the other, maybe this is a better option for those people and those exceptions for these situations. And also, if you have a local regulator or a congressman that you want to submit this information to, this is kind of where that stuff needs to go to push the FAA to make these changes.
Right, because a legislator might say, well, this is what the FAA says. And here is a completely reasonable set of alternatives that they could look at and go, oh, this makes a lot more sense. Why didn't they do this? So instead of you having to just, when you say remote ID is bad and people say, oh, yeah, well, what would you do? Show them the ARC report and be like, look at this. Doesn't this make sense? All righty. Next up, we are here for It's Barely News, the segment where we had some fast, small items that didn't deserve to be news items on their own, but that we still thought you would think were pretty cool. What do we got first, Blunty?
Right, first up, drone acoustic detection, finding drones with acoustic detection, has gotten better based on the information they've gleaned from a fly called the hoverfly. The hoverfly basically uses its own sort of internal biological algorithms to detect images, tiny images in a large area, and they kind of use this basic idea, and they're quoting this fly in this paper, where they've gone in and tested this microphone array, and they've been able to go about 30 to 40% farther in drone detection. So just with some microphones set up on some stands, they can detect Mavic Airs or Matrices and stuff 2.5 miles away.
Nice. That's kind of cool. Taking inspiration from evolution. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Next up,
we've talked a little bit about this before, but basically there's some AI systems, and there's 4 or 5 of these different groups that have tried this to recover. They're trying to recover meteorites by using drones that fly around and then map the ground, and then they're using AI to look at those meteorites and to figure out what's a meteorite and what's not. And 4 or 5 groups have written papers on this and tried this, and this is the first time in the real world that it has worked. So they went out, and after detecting with the DFN network, they have this fireball network that detects these meteorites or shooting stars, and they went to this area, combed it with drones, and were able to find it, I believe, in about 4 days of combing.
Nice. We saw an example of this where a fella used an open a tool to scan for his wing that crashed.
Yes.
And it scanned through all his drone footage and found where the wing had been downed.
So one of the biggest challenges between something like a wing and this is, one, wing is a known shape, right? It can't be random like a meteorite. And two, a wing is a significant color in the area.
Like blue.
And so they basically have neither of these. They do not know what the meteorite looks like that they are trying to find. They just have general ideas of what the color.
And yet somehow the AI went, hey,
locate that little black
I
dot.
think that's a meteorite. Like, why do you think that's a meteorite and not just like a rock? I'm AI. I can't tell you why, but I can just spit out results.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Pretty cool.
Very cool. All right. Next up. Ooh, pregnant
drones
dolphins.
are also identifying from the air pregnant dolphins. So for a while, they've been identifying dolphins from the air, and they've been tracking their pods and looking at how many kids they have and where they maneuver and stuff. But one of them figured out that you can actually figure out from the shape, size, and movement of a dolphin whether they're pregnant or not. And so now they're able to actually use a lot more information in determining like why pods are moving where they're moving, how they're moving, pregnancy losses, right? If it doesn't work out or there's a issue with the birth and stuff. So pretty cool.
Nice. Meanwhile, the dolphin is like, "What? Stop staring at me!" And the drone is like, "You pregnant?" Finally, we found the spying that everybody's afraid drones are doing. They're spying on dolphins, though, so it's
on
okay.
Dolphins.
All righty, and lastly,
lastly,
a new camera.
Yeah, Insta360 is basically teasing this new camera that they're launching, and they're not telling us too much about it. It does appear to be some sort of adaptable, modular 360 style cam. It seems like it'll likely be some kind of sequel to the 1R or some similar to the 1R, but it's possible it'll fit on a drone. So we definitely wanted to let you know it's coming. It'll be here around the next news episode. So
Insta360 generally makes decent stuff. It's not always perfect, but in general, it's at least worth a look and a consideration. And sometimes it's really good. So, all right. Great. Well, I'm sure we'll have news about that next week. That brings us to everyone's favorite segment, the rant of the week.
Yes.
And Blunty, this week, I think you're going to be the bad guy and I'm going to be the good guy. Is that it? Sure. Is that how we're going to do it?
If you can find good in the story, you tell me.
All right. So. I will try to find something like to argue with you about. What is the story, though?
All right. So
flippin' jibbity jibbit, flibbity jibbit. I just was looking at the page too. Can I just? It's an open group.
I can pop you an Imager link.
No, don't log in. No, don't log in. Don't log in. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So basically, you can see the Caddx statement down there. Basically, somebody posted, as they like to do. Chris Landa posted to Caddx asking about canvas mode. And where's canvas mode? It's been a while. We haven't heard about it. Please update us. And so Caddx replied and said, we are working on the canvas mode, but it is really not easy and technical. We still need some time.
Okay.
Remember, this is 6 months ago, at least, that they've had this going on.
HDZero implemented canvas mode. Did it take him 6 months?
In between that entire time, no, it certainly did not.
Yeah.
However, if you scroll down there, I've got a little link.
I was so happy when I saw you replied, because I was like, I know he's starting shit right now.
But I found an old email from Caddx saying this specifically. Canvas mode is developed by DJI. It is not clear when. That sounds like a company who is not actively developing canvas mode.
Correct.
Now they're saying, hey, we've been working on it. We don't know when it's going to happen. So to me, this is bullshit. This is just live. It's just fake. Like, this is just them doing the same thing they did before when they did the encryption scare. They're just saying, hey, don't worry, we're working on it. Don't worry, we're working on it. And then when people ask them later, they're like, hey, we're not really working on it. DJI will work on it. And then now they're like, hey, we're working on it.
The we in there could include DJI.
It could if somebody's working on it. But that implies that they are aware of somebody at DJI working on the product.
What I don't understand is, I don't believe them when they say it's not easy. It's very technical. To say, well, HDZero did it, and they certainly don't have the engineering resources of a DJI. Maybe there's something about the DJI wireless digital system that makes it harder. I don't really I'm skeptical because I think it's just a digital data stream, and if they wanted to stick another data stream in there, I feel like they could. But I think what you're pointing out is that Caddx is not sending consistent messaging here.
No.
Sometimes they say, we don't know when it'll happen.
I do not believe, from things we know about Caddx, from what we know they do to the system, and from what we know DJI is actively doing on the system, that anybody is working on canvas mode, and that there's any progress on it, and that they do not have an update to show us. Like, there's nothing there. It doesn't exist. So prove me wrong, Caddx.
Well, the FPV W2F team is going to do it, and then they can just do a pull request back to the DJI repo.
Yeah.
And then DJI could just roll it in. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
DJI needs to hire the developers who rooted the goggles and then just pay them, pennies out of DJI's pocket to just continue to update the firmware for these goggles.
Yeah.
That's
DJI will never do anything. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. All right.
Never happen.
All right. Well, Caddx, just give us canvas mode. We'll find something else to complain about. I was about to say we'll be happy, but we won't be happy. We'll never be happy. I don't know why you put up with us. But at least be consistent in your messaging.
Fucking MSP DisplayPort.
There you go. It's not even canvas mode. It's MSP DisplayPort.
I don't think it's that difficult. So.
Yeah. Joonas says there is a difference. HDZero is doing the OSD on the VTX. DJI is doing it in the goggles. Yeah. That's interesting. So they need, he says canvas mode would take up a lot of the bandwidth because it's a full bitmap overlay. Yeah, but Joonas, they could do MSP DisplayPort, and that's not that much bandwidth, especially if you only have like 10 hertz update or something. Like, what do I know? But I agree. Full canvas mode would be a lot of bandwidth. Because it's 720p.
God forbid you give us options.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Like, what if I'm okay with 45 megabits per second and I have like 3 megabits per second of canvas mode?
Yeah.
Oh, that actually sounds like I'm bigger. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, Caddx clearly is not working on this. In fact, at this point, the FPV WTF team is more likely to be working on this than Caddx, because I'm going to guess that Caddx doesn't have root access to the goggles, but that's just a guess.
No, I don't think Caddx has seen the source code. I think Wesley Vardy is in the same. There's no chance it's not happening. So
Wesley Vardy says HDZero are not doing the OSD in the video transmitter. No, that's true, because if the video transmitter drops out, the goggles hold the last OSD.
I didn't want to clarify that because I couldn't remember, but yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, Joonas, sorry, Joonas, I think you're wrong there.
Yep.
Yeah. Alrighty, folks. That is going to do it for the news this week. If you guys have anything that you think we need to cover, be sure to email news@fpvknowitall.com with your submissions.
Yeah, don't forget to do that. Also, don't forget to go down there and like this video. That always helps us. Subscribe to this channel if you're somehow not subscribed. Share this video to your friends. We'd always appreciate that. And then subscribe to the JB Livestream Clips channel, the Joshua Bardwell Clips channel.
Link down below. That's right. We got a couple super chats we're going to read. Jekli, we got you. Daniel McCulloch, we got you. Burry FPV, thanks for 9 SEK, Swedish kroner. And Virgin FPV, thanks for another €2. Is there any analog radio link available? Virgin, there used to be 72 megahertz analog radios, but nobody uses them anymore. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. They've been mostly supplanted by digital control systems, but they do exist. They did exist. I'm sure you could still get one, but they're pretty rare. Virgin FPV is the one with the special hexacopter that he's building. Do you remember him from the live stream, Blunty?
I
don't know if you were watching that. He got this weird design for a hexacopter where basically the arms are T's and you got 2 motors at the end of each arm, but it's a Y. And he's like, this is new. No one's ever done this before. And then someone in the comments, this was after the live stream was over, they were like, Quad Mover made one of these. So it was like, oh, well, I guess someone's done it before. So there you go. Okay, guys, that's going to wrap us up for the week. We'll see you again next week at 6 p.m. on Tuesday for more news and throughout the week. Happy flying, everybody. See you later, Blunty.
Later, guys.